Let's do the First Amendment. Do you think that American citizens that burn the flag should have their citizenship revoked?
No.
Okay, that's something that Donald Trump has said multiple times. He said it in 20.
Donald Trump says a lot of things, and when I criticize him, that's what I criticize him about, that he has a big mouth. But you know, that's one of the things you learn to live with.
Sure. So as somebody that does like political commentary, do you realize how frustrating it is that every stupid thing Donald Trump says, you can hand wave that away? As it's just Donald Trump talking.
It's also frustrating that when he puts on a tie, you guys go out into hysterics over it. No
when he puts on a what?
If he says good morning, you say, well, is it good morning everywhere? You know,
don't,
every single thing he said has been a crisis since the guy took office, and most of that stuff never happened. There was no Russian collusion for 3 years. We had to sit.
I don't know why we're.
Well,
calm down, Ben Shapiro. Okay, hold on.
No.
Let's just very simply. Okay. So First Amendment. So he says he wants to revoke citizenship for people that burn the flag. He attacks private businesses and tell them that they should fire people for being critical of his administration. With Kaepernick, he did that. That doesn't worry you at all? That doesn't seem like an overstep of what the president ought to be doing for somebody that values freedom of expression? He didn't, but he called on the NFL to do it.
You should have fired him.
In Colin Kaepernick's defense, he sucked before he got put out the NFL.
First of all, that's not true.
Yes, it is. His stats are going down.
That is absolutely
He's a terrible
not true.
quarterback.
That is absolutely not true.
Colin Kaepernick got sacked 28 times, and he had a 30% completion rate. He was going down the drain.
So it's just, I'm not going to argue NFL stats, but it's just not true. You can go look him up if you care to.
We can't find him.
I'm just curious for somebody that has attacked the First Amendment more than I can remember any president in my lifetime doing. So whether that's calling on Kaepernick being fired, whether that's saying that people that burn the flag should have their citizenship revoked, whether that's saying that they should open up libel and defamation suits against the media, the president of the United States, continuously undermining and attacking our media institutions, revoking press badges from the White House. I just don't understand how you have this guy and you say this is...
Not one of those things that you mentioned is a threat to the First Amendment.
What does the First Amendment mean to you?
It means that the government has no right to restrict
what And who's Trump?
But how is he restricted anyway?
Trump, first of all, he revoked...
Can I stop you for 1 second? One of the frustrating things about this is that, Donald Trump is a great big American character with great big American flaws, and I get it. And I understand that, and I don't want to sit here and defend flaws, and I understand we could go back and forth. Donald Trump has resisted every call for a federal program or a new federal bureaucracy to deal with this.
And watched 250,000 Americans, disproportionately black, mind you, die as a result of it. Do you think that's a champion?
I do not think that is not why they died. And 40% of them died in Democrat states run by governors who put people into rest homes.
If only we had a head executive that maybe could have stopped that. They might have been a Democrat state, but they're a Republican-run country. Donald Trump is the chief executive. Why does he have no responsibility for anything?
I'm not saying he has no responsibility for anything. He didn't do any. He's not a disease.
He didn't do anything. I agree. That's his main criticism, is that he did nothing. He sat behind and watched the country burn.
Hear me out. So
the liberals burned it.
Here it is.
Under Trump's watch.
Wait.
Okay, so as a small business owner myself, and somebody with a little bit of corporate and business experience, it drives me crazy because you guys had Trump come in with this whole slogan about he's going to run things like a business, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how many of you guys have business experience, but if you're a supervisor and your manager comes down on you and he says, hey, what's going on here? If you start pointing out employees that messed up, like, oh, well, that guy messed up, that guy, you're going to get fired. It's your job as a supervisor to manage your workers.
Exactly.
So why is it that Trump came in?
So we can say that the governors for each individual states had the obligation to manage that state, which they didn't.
And who is their boss?
So when Trump came in and said, hey, we need to employ federal troops into each individual state that liberals, mind you, left-wing white kids were destroying, they said, no, we don't want your help.
I'm not talking about the BLM protests that killed a dozen people. I'm talking about the coronavirus that killed 250,000 plus Americans.
Mind you, the CDC updated the website and said the majority of the people who died from coronavirus had 2 or 3 major pre-existing conditions which contributed
which is all the more reason why we should have been more careful.
Let's not even talk about the mismanagement of the virus. Okay, people are getting killed. I had a guy get shot, gunshot wound to the chest. He died from coronavirus. How is that even plausible? Car accident, coronavirus. How is that plausible? So let's talk about the amount of misinformation that we're getting from every facet of government organizations, including the CDC and every single hospital that has been lying. Because
do you think the majority of the coronavirus deaths are fake in the United States? Is that what you're saying? I want to answer that. Do you think the majority of those deaths are fake?
The majority of the people who have died from the coronavirus it's not reflective of what they've been talking about. That's
What is
why
it reflective of?
It's reflective of misinformation to scare
What kind of
people.
misinformation?
Let me ask you a question. How come they never talk about the recovery rate?
We're not talking-
99.9% recovery rate, right? Contracted it. This many people die, but they never talk to pre-existing conditions. Why? Because they want to scare you into wearing all of these things.
Do you think America's the only country with citizens
You
that
know
have
what?
pre-existing conditions for coronavirus?
Let me tell you
Why is it
another
that when we
thing.
look at other states, like if we look at other countries like
All right,
Australia
let me
or
do
New
this.
Zealand or South Korea or
Hey,
Vietnam,
hey.
or any other, wait,
Let's
I don't
Hey.
understand why we can make so many excuses.
Hey.
Right?
Hold on, hold
Where's
on.
your face mask?
Excuse
The
me.
Middle East been wearing face masks since Jesus Christ is walking this earth, right? But they still have
For the
to
record,
wear-
I was the only person here that came in with a face mask.
Because
Don't
you
even
were-
start,
you were the
okay?
only
person.
I don't understand why conservatives say that America
Let me
can be
do
the
this.
best, America can do the greatest things, we can accomplish all these things, but when it comes to the coronavirus, it's just a huge box of excuses for our massive ineptitude after ineptitude for dealing with this virus. Either the stats are fake, we're the only people...
Biden is the best presidential candidate, knowing that one, he has a mental degenerative disease right now, and two, he has created the policy that encouraged the mass incarceration of blacks and Latinos, 338 pages of it, which gave block grants and cash incentive to states that throw people in prison for accusations of a
You
crime
mean that
without
same
even,
cr- that
without,
same
without
crime bill?
even having proof that a crime has been
That
committed.
same crime bill that was supported by black senators, by black leaders at the time in the entire country, the
Yes,
90s,
the
when
same
crime was at an
crime bill.
all-time violent
It
high.
was
That
not
same
at
crime...
an all-time high. It was at an
It was
all-time low. but they
in the
said-
Okay.
90s. You won't acknowledge
Let me
that.
do this.
Who's saying that the Central Park 5 kids should have been hung
person who don't
after
wanna
they were
get rid of it-
exonerated?
the
That
person
was
who don't
Donald
wanna get
Trump,
rid of the
not Joe
crime bill
Biden.
It's Joe Biden and people like
Shut
him.
up. How about you? Do you believe the polls that Joe Biden's beating out Trump?
Absolutely. For anybody that
What
doesn't
the-
believe me, hey, if anybody wants to, if you guys are so confident, I'll give you 2-to-1 on your money, $20, $100, whoever wants to bet, I'll gladly do it. Gentlemen in the back, talk me after and we'll do it. Anybody that wants to bet on it, 100% I'll bet on it. If you're so confident that the polls are wrong, put $20 on it. Sure.
Andrew, do you believe?
I think it's really interesting that when you look at how we approach voting in the United States, the Republican chief operating procedure is to make as few people vote as possible. I always think it's interesting when Republicans talk about voting, they're always trying to restrict who can vote, whether it's voter ID, whether it's gerrymandering, whether it's restricting when we can mail in our votes, whether it's no absentee ballot voting, even if Trump himself or other military people relied on it. I think it's really interesting that Republicans mode of operation here is always to get as few people voting as possible, and that's been the way that they've tried to
And
win
I'm in favor.
narrow
I'm in
elections.
favor of that as well. I'm in favor of people voting if they're responsible, if they know what they're doing. I think that we should restrict voters to people who pay taxes so they have some skin in the game. I don't think the idea that you need a driver's license, some ID to vote is voter restriction. I need ID to buy liquor, you know.
Buying liquor is not a constitutional right, and it's not a fundamental underpinning of our government, though. Whether or not you go out and buy liquor is inconsequential to the
That's all
existence
the
of
more
United
reason why you
States.
should need identification, why
Sure,
there should be security.
because it's a guaranteed right to. You need a really good reason to put a roadblock up between somebody that wants to exercise, arguably, the most important thing they can do in the United
It's
States, which
only
is
a
have a say.
guarantee right for people who are citizens of the United States. That's all.
That's all I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about illegals voting. We can talk about that if you want. That's an interesting conversation
No,
topic.
we
but-
can be talking about that all night. We're in California.
But yeah, I mean, voting is a really important thing. I don't think you need a really good reason to make somebody not vote, as everybody up here has already
they're
said.
not who they say they are.
Well, yeah, but that
That's a
just
good
doesn't
reason.
happen. There are ways to check and see when you
Yeah,
you
it's
show up
called
at the polls
ID.
and you
It's the
vote.
same thing you do
You
as
give
a
them your
federal
name, you give them your address, they cross you off the list, and you vote. It's a pretty easy thing. I think it's interesting when you say people that don't have jobs or people that don't pay taxes shouldn't vote. So are we talking about disproportionately black people and Hispanic people there that shouldn't be allowed
Why
to vote?
y'all
then?
always use black people?
Well, who do you think in the United States is less likely to hold a job
Don't
right
we
now?
have other races that?
It's
Sure,
about
but
to
when we're
go
talking
down.
about the most that are affected by poverty, don't virtue signal to me, Jesse. Come on, that's a liberal thing. Don't do that to me. When
Well,
we're talking
black-
about the most disaffected people in the United States, we're usually talking about black people or Hispanic people.
But that's
Are
not
these the
true,
people that
though.
What do
It's
you mean that's not true?
Black people can go vote. They even set a bus for
They
you.
can. I was just responding to his point. Responding to his point about saying that people that don't pay taxes shouldn't vote. I
Let's
think it's
just use a
pretty
Oh,
different
I see.
analogy. Let's use a different analogy. All right, don't stop talking about black people disproportionate, this, that, and the other, because the same Democrats that are talking about black people are the same Democrats who said Trump was whistling to his people who lived up in the hills to come down and vote for him. So let's stop talking about black people, man. Talk about something else. Use a different type of analogy. Don't use Latinos either. He's getting pissed off right here. He's up on the seat say so much.
I mean, I don't really care how mad you get. Numbers are numbers. I mean, these are issues
that's
that
not
we have
numbers.
to talk about.
Okay,
They
all
are
right, let's
numbers.
talk
That's what
about
they
numbers.
are.
How are black people 12% of the population in the United States, but they're the most disproportionate when it comes to voting?
What does that have to do with any of the points that I just said?
That means that black people cannot be the most people who don't vote because we don't even make up not even 20% of the population. We only make up 12% of the population. White people make up the majority of the population. So if we have a voter and 32% of the people came out to vote, black people only make up 12% of the population, that means the majority of people who did not vote are white.
This is your friendly reminder that this gentleman who's running for elected office doesn't know what the fucking word disproportionate means. I would like to have many angry, bitter words with this poor gentleman's high school math teacher because he, this poor, wretched soul, has not been served well by whatever school system, whatever wretched school system he was put through. Obviously didn't get enough funding. Maybe because conservatives hate progressive funding.
Ooh. Next topic.
No, okay.
Ooh. Next topic.
You sound like Ben
It's like
Shapiro.
a stats 101 thing. So I don't know.
You
if I
said
know-
numbers. You said you did you not say
when you
numbers?
talk about numbers, we talk about
Only
per
numbers that
capita.
matter to you.
No,
Okay, my bad.
first
Numbers
of all,
that matter to you.
You
All right,
can
you
say
got
they
it.
don't
You
matter
got
to
it.
me, but when it comes to
Yeah,
Democratic
no, you
Party,
said
the
numbers.
black vote was incredibly
You
important
said
for them.
numbers.
It was going to be the nominee. The
You
Democratic
said
Party.
numbers.
Black people
You
came
said
out and they
numbers,
voted
and
for
I
Joe
gave
Biden.
you numbers.
You gave me absolute
You,
numbers. So
I
don't
gave
mean
you the numbers
anything.
that are.
You know how in the first debate they couldn't mute Trump's mic before for Joe Biden to respond to what the idiot had been saying in the segment before? Forget that. Just mute this fucking cuckboy so that Destiny could actually explain what the word disproportionate means and how being the minority of the population doesn't mean you can't be disproportionately affected by something. I literally want to jump out this window in a game of PUBG, okay? Oh,
I would want my kid to go to school knowing that he was protected from somebody carrying diseases that could be prevented by vaccines. I don't feel like I live in a free country if my kid gets some debilitating illness that could have been prevented by a vaccine. That's not freedom to me.
Should they force the parents to do it?
Absolutely. It's about keeping our children safe.
They're doing it now already.
Do you think they should force
That,
it?
it's
No,
not,
they
it's
are
not,
forcing it.
It's not freedom.
Force it?
They are forcing it now.
I said, should they though?
They are, so
I know they are. But
yeah.
They should force it.
oh, should they force it?
I mean, no, I do feel like it should be you should be able to make that decision
Oh, okay.
because it's a health decision and it's your body. I was never vaccinated
Right.
as a child. But
Vaccines are literally the single most important improvement that we've made in public health over
I
the
think
past,
that-
like, sanitary.
I
okay?
think that since you're
Like,
the one with the problem, you keep your kids out of school so everybody else can enjoy the freedom of going to school.
I think America already has enough of an
that's it.
education problem without just arbitrarily pulling people out of
Just
school
like
because
a-
we can't vaccinate like
Just
every
like
other first world
America
country
already
in the
has a
world
problem with
figured out.
forcing other people's opinions on everybody else and making that a norm. If you don't want your kids to be vaccinated, don't vaccinate your kids. If you want your kids to be vaccinated, vaccinate your kids, but don't inhibit everybody else's rights just because you feel uncomfortable with some type of decision. Keep your kids out of school.
I cannot believe that as an American, I have to
cannot
sit up
believe
here and
that you
share a
want
stage with
everybody's
somebody
kid to
that's
be
running for
vaccinated just
Congress
because
that
your
doesn't
kid-
understand how important vaccines
It's
are.
not about
That is
the importance of
absolutely
vaccination,
fucking
about the
embarrassing
importance of
to me.
freedom. This is
That when I
America.
turn on my channel,
Keep
I have
your kid
Europeans in
in the
chat
house.
that are going to ask me, do Americans really debate vaccines? I can't even believe that.
Keep
Well, you
your
should
kid
care
in
if you
the
want your
house.
kids to be healthy. If you want your kids to
Keep
not be
your
dying
child
of
in the
preventable
house.
diseases, I think it's a pretty important thing.
Saying
So-
white lives matter? No,
Okay,
you don't.
it's because we know in America, there's no question that white lives matter. The problem with the way that we treat black lives in America is it seems like there is a lack of accountability whenever there would be extrajudicial killings of black men by white cops. That's where BLM came from. It was the holding accountable these police precincts that have a vested interest in protecting their cops when it seems like they can always get away, or a lot of the time get away with murdering black men. Everybody agrees that a black man killing a black man or woman is wrong. Nobody's debating that. Everybody agrees that when a white person is killed, it's wrong. Nobody's debating that. The reason why BLM started was because it seemed like there was an accountability problem with police officers and being held accountable when they killed black people. That was the problem.
Statistics don't
Okay,
actually show that, but I
once
would,
again,
but I would,
it
what
takes
I
me
always
back to
wonder
my
about though, when,
original
Hold on a
point.
minute. Hold on,
If
Carl.
Black Lives Matter,
Hold on.
you guys
Hey.
for everyone.
Okay, hold
you
on.
can't,
all
you
right?
can't,
Hold on.
you can't do a
And
movement
you,
like
no,
that.
no, no.
I don't,
Ed, you want to respond?
people of joy about the majority of criminals.
Doesn't mean he deserves.
Get that? That's not the majority of black people.
George Floyd might have been a criminal, but that doesn't mean he deserves to be executed on the
No,
ground
I'm not,
by cops.
yes, but it doesn't mean he doesn't mean he deserves to be
The question
geographied.
is, like, when you're an activist, you're
wasn't
trying
executed.
To, when he
Just
was
FYI.
executed, he was executed. He did not die of a drug overdose. He absolutely did not. Read the corner. Yeah, watch the video. Have you ever seen somebody die? Have you seen anybody? Nobody that it's. Well, he very conveniently died of a drug overdose. It took 8 minutes while another cop was kneeling on his back. Okay. You can't make a movement and cover every single thing, right? If we say that BLM, well, why don't you care about black on black murders? Okay, fine, we do now. Oh, well, why don't you care about black people that die of, the flu? Or why don't you care about black people that die?
Respond to what Andrew said.
I want to know if it's good for people to
Yeah.
elevate and make saints out of petty
No
criminals.
one is making a saint out of him. It's the idea that if
pictures
you
of them
mess
with
up in
wings and
America,
halos all
if
over
you
the
mess
place.
up,
That's
nobody,
just-
no,
that's
if
just
you
because
mess
they
up,
have-
you don't deserve to be killed by the
I never
cops.
said that,
But that's why BLM started, because it seems like people like you, it seems like people like you will come out and say, well, he was no angel, so maybe the cops
No,
should
I
have
didn't
killed him.
say that. I
But
didn't
you're
say that.
asking, like, why are they holding him up? Because it's a person that shouldn't have been
But how
killed
do
by a
you re-
cop
how do you
without
re-
due process. Well, when we're talking about
Answer
BLM,
that.
we're
No, no,
usually...
no, answer
well, because
that
that's
question.
not BLM's job. That's not what Black Lives Matter
No,
is
he
about.
want to know, why is it that you people?
What do you mean by that, Jesse?
First off, I have the common sense and the moral background, and my parents taught me better not to do that. So I just wouldn't do it, and I respect police officers.
Do you
If they
think that
tell me
somebody
to
that
do
resists the
something,
cops
I'm
deserves
going
to be killed?
listen. It's
Do-
a lack of respect.
Do you
You're
think
not
that
listening
do you think
to
that
what they're-
somebody that resists arrest should be murdered by a cop?
If
Do
they're
you think one of
doing
those consequences should
something
be getting killed by a
stupid,
police
like
officer?
Pulling for their gun. Yeah, I'm sorry. That officer deserves
Man,
to
it is-
go
I
home
just
to
wanna
their
say, it is
family.
crazy to me
that
that-
officer deserves to go home to their family. What if they grab the gun and shoot the officer? Then what?
Damn.
Then
I just want to say
what?
it is insane to me that in a room full of Republicans that all love your freedom so much, you're ready to bend over to the cops, and if you get arrested for anything, you're willing to
don't
die if you resist arrest?
It's not like literally a child could understand that. You don't resist arrest. You were doing something shady that got you in that.
Yeah, all the
circumstance
Republicans
in the
addicted to
first
meth in the
place.
Midwest where I come from aren't saying the same shit, but I mean, you can pretend that if you
were
want.
doing
Thank you.
something-
We have a White Lives Matter organization. It's called the United States of America. Nobody in the United States. Stay mad. Oh, yeah. Let me hear it. I love it. Yep. I love it. I love it. If a white guy gets killed, people aren't out here making all these excuses for why he should have been killed. Seems like it happens for black people more often than not. We saw it happen on stage earlier. I heard this gentleman say it over here. He had fentanyl in his system. If you want to create an organization to talk about black on black violence, do it. There's tons of different ways you can do that. Whatever you want to call it, you know? Sure.
Should it be legal to camp out on the sidewalks in Los Angeles? Why or why not? For all three of you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take away the ability for people to sleep on the street, if you want to make it illegal, you have to provide some type of social housing for them. You can't just make it illegal and what, are you going to pay $70,000 a year to lock them up in jail instead?
Wait, you're saying it should be legal or not?
No, it can be legal or illegal. I don't really care. I think it should be legal. If people are out there, it's because you don't have the places for them to go. So let them stay out there until somebody's embarrassed enough to do something about it. Like something needs to happen. If you make it illegal, what are you going to do? You want to pay $70,000 a year to lock them up? That's even more wasted money than doing something to actually treat these people. I don't think people are out on the street because they want to be, or because it's fun, or because they enjoy it. They're out there because the necessary social programs don't exist that help them get off the street and get their lives back together.
The young lady here.
Which is two things, real quick. I like that Republicans defend unions when it's police that are involved. That's very funny to me. Secondly, I think that also this idea that police are like this involved in monumentally dangerous work every single day is a total myth. I'm pretty sure police officer ranks as like 14th or 15th in like most dangerous jobs in America. So the idea that police officers are constantly under threat of being murdered every single day of their lives is not true. In terms of what do the police do and what they should do, I think that the job of a police officer has expanded way past what it was ever meant to be. Like police officers are there, they should be called on when crimes are being committed and you need somebody to come in and take care of the crime being committed. But now they are social workers, they resolve domestic disputes, they're called in for kids, for things like truancy, they're called in for mental illness problems. People call the cops when there's like a dog loose on the street. We have to figure out like what niche the police should exist in, and then we have to have other services that exist to take care of the other problems. A lot of the killings that we see, unfortunately, with police and other people are when you have these mentally ill people that police don't know how to deal with, that they're brought in to handle, that end up killing a guy because he's crazy and the police don't know how to deal with it. So Yeah, I think that the scope of what the police do should be way more narrow than what it is now. And then we should have other services to kind of take the place of all these other things that police have started to cover.
Are you for defunding the police?
If defunding means reallocating those funds to other services that would take care of those things, then yeah. For my Biden fans in the audience, there's got to be at least one or two of you out there, no?
Nobody.
I hope you guys are all okay on election night. If you guys need to call a friend or family, you got the suicide hotline on Google. Make sure to look it up. I'm sure this guy over here, Daily Wire writer, is going to have all sorts of conspiracies for you for why Trump lost the election. Voter fraud, election fraud, 4 million illegals being busted to vote. Don't worry. You guys will find some way to cope. I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm excited for us to get back to rule of law, where we don't have a president that's stealing money to get his pet projects done. I'm excited for the institutions to come back, where we don't have a historic vacancy, which is Merrick Garland's nomination, left on the Supreme Court because the Senate won't do their job and actually confirm an appointed Supreme Justice nominee like they didn't under Obama for a historic period of time. And I'm excited to be friends with the rest of the world again when we don't have a leader that is constantly besmirching our name and the names of our allies on the global stage. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to have a president that can competently deal with the coronavirus so we don't have spike after spike after spike of people getting sick, of me not being able to leave, me not being able to travel, of us not being able to go out and eat. I'm super excited for Joe Biden's presidency.